now in Kwazulu-Natal. Reporter Karinda Jagmohan has been watching the devastating impact of the floods there. Karinda, of course, it seems that there's no end in sight for the kind of destruction that has been experienced by different parts of KZN due to this inclement weather.
Absolutely no end in sight, especially here in Ladysmith. Kathy, you can see behind me the flooding that has occurred here. My colleague Sibongiseni Nkubande will actually zoom in and show you some rescue teams that are still in boats traversing what used to be main roads of the lower CBD area of Ladysmith that now has become rivers. The water is meters high. People who've tried to cross have had to almost swim through these rescue boats. There are about 8 rescue boats by the SAPS search and rescue team that has been going up and down trying to find people who are entrapped in their homes, in their stores, or trying to assist people to cross what I'll now call this river to the suburbs on the other side. The main issue here for the residents is that this CBD area is where the residents are trying to buy some of their groceries. On the other side, they don't really have much access to get groceries and to be able to go where they stay. Fortunately, there have been no fatalities in this area. More than 70 people have been evacuated either from homes or from their businesses. Throughout the day, we've been speaking to a number of residents. We were actually on one of these boats of the search and rescue teams, and we went throughout this affected area where we saw just mass devastation. This has been completely damaged. Buildings, stores, especially stores owned by small business owners, have been submerged underwater. A number of vehicles as well submerged underwater. And so the economic damage in the aftermath of this natural disaster is going to be massive. Now, according to the Alfred Duma local municipality mayor, this area has been declared as a state of disaster. But the Cocta department as well as the premier is still yet to officially confirm this. They requested this declaration earlier in the week, simply because it's going to take more than 3 billion rand in funds to actually repair the critical infrastructure across the affected areas in the province. So it's quite a scene of devastation. More than 25 people have died across the province in the midst of these floods that we have been seeing in havoc. A number of informal structures absolutely destroyed by the heavy winds, the severe storms that we saw. And here, what happened here is that this main street, Forbes Street, which is one of the worst affected streets, lies right next to a river which overflowed in the midst of the torrential rain, bouts of torrential rain. And the street actually lies just under the level of the river, which meant that when the river overflowed, its water came onto these streets and flooded the lower part of this town. So it's really caused chaos for the lives of those who live here, for those who depend on this area for their economic day-to-day affairs. And it's quite a scene of devastation. We're going to be speaking soon. I understand Newzroom Afrika will be speaking soon to police about how they've actually been conducting these search and rescue operations in the midst of these devastating storms that have hit KwaZulu-Natal.
Karinda, you raise an important issue around the status of the water, because as one looks at it behind you, it's absolutely still. So we have to ask questions about the drain water systems and infrastructure there. Any plan right now around, outside of just waiting for the waters to dissipate somewhat, any other plan on how exactly officials might seek to clear that area?
Yes, we understand that tomorrow there will be further disaster management teams in this area to assess how they can mop up this area, because it's going to take, if we were to leave this water here, according to some of the rescue managers that we spoke to, it would take days, if not weeks, for this water to dry up and recede back into the river. And of course, the residents can't afford for that to happen. So we understand that there will be teams on the ground to assess what can be done, possibly even trying to bring in machines to pump out this water and, of course, put it back into the river that's overflowed. I did ask the local municipality mayor about the drainage systems, because that is clearly an issue where the drainage systems are unable to cope with the mass flooding that has happened almost overnight here. He actually did not want to say that there was an issue with the drainage systems. He simply said that this is a natural disaster for which the systems were not prepared. But of course, going forward, we have to look at how now small towns like this need to ramp up their infrastructure in the midst as the world faces a global warming crisis and we see more severe weather patterns. These storms, apparently 205 incidents of severe storms across KZN, have happened since November, where we've seen just a bout of severe, massive storms hitting especially the inland northern areas of KZN and causing this devastation. We have seen that 2021 was among the hottest years for the planet itself. So of course, going forward, it's high time. We understand residents are saying that government really looks at renovating infrastructure to actually deal with these weather patterns.
Let's talk then about some of the rescue efforts. Let me welcome onto the show Brigadier J. Naka. He's with the SAPS. Brigadier Naka, good evening to you and thanks for your time on the Pulse. Let's talk about then the various operations that you are running going into the night as officers. Are there people that you are looking for? And talk to us about how many have died so far.
Well, we won't be able to give you the stats in terms of fatalities at this stage. However, our police officers have been working non-stop, moving people from areas that have been affected by the floods. Just yesterday in Ladysmith, since last night, 152 people were rescued. These included 27 minor children, a 3-month-old baby, as well as 2 disabled persons. We had a lot of difficulty trying to move people out of their homes in these flooded areas, as some people did not want to leave their houses, even in the face of danger, as they were scared that people might steal property of theirs, and they didn't want to leave their houses. So that was a challenge also. But our police officers are still committed, and they are working non-stop, searching for people that may have drowned.
Brigadier Naka, were there any warnings that were issued to locals about the extent of the flooding that they would face, or has this all been a surprise?
Well, I'm sure the Department of Cooperative Governance and the disaster management teams can give you that assessment in terms of their duties, in terms of informing the public. Once we were contacted, we dispatched police officers from across the province to assist the areas that have been affected by the floods, and our police officers are still concentrating in those areas in terms of looking for people that may have drowned.
Have your rescue efforts right now been limited to Ladysmith? Because we know that there are other areas of the province that have also been affected by floods in the last couple of weeks.
No, absolutely. We've been working across the province. Ladysmith has been our focus since last night. We are still continuing. In fact, even prior to the festive season, before the rains hit us, we had a lot of drownings. And there were a lot of contributing factors to those drownings. In fact, across the province, we're still looking for approximately 10 people that are missing due to the floods, as well as people that have drowned in our beaches.
What is your message to residents who are in areas that are experiencing these heavy rains and floods? What can they do to make the work that you as officers are doing right now easier?
I think, first of all, we are appealing to people to listen to the authorities, and where there's areas that are affected, that they need to, if they have to vacate their homes, they should do so, because their lives are more important than their property. Some people are placing the property above their lives and refusing to move out of those areas that are affected. In terms of our rivers, we have a lot of challenges where children, especially when it's hot, get into our rivers to cool down. The challenge there being that we have a lot of illegal activities like sand mining, and what happens is when the people mine these areas, they dig deep holes in the rivers, and children get into the river and not realizing that there's a deep hole there, and they drown. So we are appealing to parents also to pay attention to that. When it's raining, sometimes we find the low-lying bridges and the small streams that also turn into quite fierce, for water forces. And people sometimes, when they leave in the morning, there's no rain. When they get back in the afternoon, these areas are flooded, and people are desperate to get home, so they try to cross these low-level bridges and these small streams, and they drown in the process. So appealing to people to be more careful because there's a lot of lives at risk.
All right, it certainly looks like from the visuals that we're seeing on our screen that it may be some time before things are returned to normal in Ladysmith. It's just one of multiple areas that have been hit by heavy floods, and we know, of course, the ongoing appeals by the Kwazulu-Natal Department of COGTA, that is, to ensure that a state of disaster is declared in some of these municipalities. Well, we're going to stay with that story, disaster management in that province, spending the day evacuating residents, not just in Ladysmith, but in Msinga. It follows the heavy weekend rains that have caused this widespread flooding.
As the municipality, we are preparing ourselves, but the problem is if the water levels are so high, there is not much that we can do except supporting those people who have been removed to safe places, like we have residents in the sports complex. Ours is just to support them with the blankets. As you can see, Alimtat is also helping us with the blankets and the food. But because we cannot just sit down without doing anything, we have inquired from the companies like Mgeni Water, Rand Water, because we feel that we need to be doing something. It can't be that every summer when it is raining, we have got no town. As of now, Mgeni Water has recommended an engineering company, a company of engineers, that will come here tomorrow. Like today, it's Monday. They are beginning their work tomorrow on Tuesday. They will assess the whole situation, come up with the recommendations in order for us to know what is it that we can do to resolve this situation forever.